See where we are. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Talking Niagara this morning. And there's the morning where we're talking about a number of challenges facing Niagara on our talk show. Just welcome everybody, and it is Friday, October 10th. What are you doing with the year, Dave?
I don't know. I was going to blame you.
It just seems the the year's just going on.
Yeah, it's moving along pretty rapidly.
Well, I need it to stop right now. I feel like I'm about 5 days from finishing something, and I've got 1 day to finish it in.
Well, I like it to stop too because I haven't yet finished my spring cleaning.
Ah, that's even worse. That's even worse, Dave.
Even worse than that, it's the spring cleaning I started in 2020.
Oh. Well, I can't help you.
I don't know. I just can't get anything done. There's not enough time.
Well, there's only one answer to that, Dave. You're going to have to retire. Oh, you're already retired. Damn.
I'm going to have to retire from being retired.
Yeah. And you go through your calendar with a fine tooth comb. I'm not doing that.
I would like to say because I was so busy doing other things, but that is a big lie. We got plenty of time, and right now I'm looking at something that's got dust on it.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't accumulate just overnight either.
No, well, get your Swiffer out. Get your Swiffer out and Swiffer it up.
Yep. Maybe tomorrow.
Or the day after.
Yeah.
Next Friday if you're not doing something more important. How about that?
Yeah. So how's everything going, everyone out there? Hello to everyone from Talking Niagara. Where's our?
That was an echo.
We're having problems here.
I'm hoping that settles down. All we can do is just go on. I've had nothing but trouble with cameras this morning. It just won't show me, and every time it keeps popping out. Right. But now seemingly working. Okay. Short-term rental properties in Crystal Beach are to get more parking options from Fort Erie Township, and basically they've just approved a pilot project to open up 10 slots at the municipal lots on the south side of Erie Road between Oxford and Oakwood. And these slots have been reserved for short-term rental license holders who pay for a minor variance on the town's committee of adjustment on top of an annual $500 parking fee for these slots. I read through this article and I could see some immediate problems in this because I'm thinking to myself, hey, here you go. Here's your car thing to put up in your car to show you're available, and you just drive off with it as the guest, right?
Oh, you could, but I mean, you'll have. I'm pretty sure that they'll have to. There'll be a surcharge on that card.
Probably, yeah. But anyway.
Oh, okay. Here's your card. You got to give me $50, and then we'll give you $50 back when we get the card.
Yeah, that would have to be your way you would do it as the property owner, I guess. Yeah, because otherwise there's a practicality problem, isn't there?
Yeah.
And then you've got the guest who's actually staying in Crystal. He's left at 11 o'clock today, but he's staying around in Crystal Beach until 4 p.m.
Well, I don't know. It wasn't something that concerned me too much when I read the article. I don't know what Crystal Beach is going to do.
I don't know why I thought of those two examples, but I just suddenly went, whoa, they popped into the mind. Anyway, yeah, I don't think it's a big issue. All they're doing is making available some of these short-term rental properties don't have ample parking, so they're just relieving that situation.
We might find the same thing here, basically, which would concern us more. The short-term rental properties are a growing phenomenon, and there will be issues like parking and that kind of thing.
That's a different matter in Niagara Falls, because Crystal Beach doesn't exactly have a lot of them, but also there are a few properties down in Crystal Beach that have very little parking.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And hey, I'm not an world expert on Crystal Beach, but I've been there a few times and I've noticed a few things like that, right?
Well, Crystal Beach Bridgeway, they got the chandelier there. I think the Crystal Chandelier, it's a little bar there. Sometimes you can get some real damn good music in there. I've gone down there a few times in the last couple of years and been very, very pleased by the quality of bands they can get in there, or even they had a folk singer type person in there one time. I was very, very pleased by the level of, but
I do hope you took a taxi home.
No, someone else was driving. Someone that doesn't drink.
Someone that doesn't drink was driving. Wow. I was that once. I was that someone one time, and all I drank all night was Coke. But I, honestly, everybody else was waving around at the end of the night, and I was waving in unison with them, even though I didn't have a spot of drink in me.
Well, I was the designated driver a couple of times, and it was remarkable to me how idiotic everybody acts when they've been drinking, but they don't realize it because we're all drunk. But from the outside looking in, I'm thinking that's what I sound like when I get drinking. Yeah. Because all these other people, they all wanted to tell me the same thing over and over again, tell me the same joke, make nonsensical kind of remarks. And I thought if I ever got in the whole car stunk of alcohol.
Yeah.
And I thought if I ever got pulled over by a cop and rolled down the window, they'd smell it because I could. And I knew that I would have had to have taken a breathalyzer because the whole place stunk like hell. And I thought to myself, no wonder we have drinking and driving rules.
Yeah. I knew this lady who had a designated driver thing. So they used to have teams. Well, not designated driver, but they used to drive you home of a night, so you could pick up you could leave your car at work, you could go for a drink, and then they'd have a designated, a designated driver program, so they could come, you could just order a pickup. They would send two persons, one to drive you in their car and one to drive your car.
Yeah, I did that myself once. An old friend of mine came into town and we went to the Queen's Hotel and drank for hours. And then we saw on the clipboard, we saw that they have Arrive Alive, it was called, and it was
okay.
It was a service right? So we phoned them and they said, "Oh, geez, you should phone ahead of time, but we'll get there when we can." And so we just went to a local coffee shop and sat there until they showed up, and they took my car and they had a cab follow us. And so they took my car and they dropped him off, and then they dropped me off, and then I paid him up. And I thought, wow, what a great service this is.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't Arrive Alive. Mine was the people I knew ran their own local service, but it's still same principle. Yeah.
Yeah, but since that time, I don't drink that much anymore when I go out. So
Yeah.
I really don't need it. But
I really don't drink unless I'm, I really don't drink unless I'm at home.
Well, yeah, me too. Maybe a beer or something at a bar, one or two, but that wouldn't take any more than that. But anyway, if we want to segue a bit, there's a lot of push out there for people not to drink at all. There's been more science coming up. We used to think that if you have one beer a day or one shot of whiskey a day or 1.5 glasses of wine or something like that, that was supposed to be good for you. Apparently not. Apparently the alcohol is probably not as bad as tobacco, but if you drink it in moderation, it probably won't hurt you that bad, but it doesn't do you any good. And particularly, and when you do drink a little bit too much, then it really does get to you. So there's a lot of push that says don't drink alcohol at all.
Well, and actually, that's what you're segueing onto is police are only part of the problem in terms of substance abuse, right?
Yeah, that's an article we have here. Of course, the homeless thing, and we have other articles here today. And of course, the homeless thing we've been talking about on this show off and on in fact, it used to be the most dominant topic, and it still keeps coming up over and over again. And one of the biggest problems, of course, is substance abuse. And the police here in this particular article says you cannot arrest your way out of substance abuse. We see that the police have adopted a zero tolerance for people taking drugs in public. Now, of course, that has a lot of problems to it. So what they do is they arrest the people and take away their drugs. They don't arrest them. They stop them, take away their drugs, and then direct them towards community services that would help them. Of course, it doesn't really help. The community services, we don't see any. When this program began, they didn't see any uptick in people coming to them. They find that, and the police have admitted, quite frankly, that this will stop it maybe in and around the downtown areas where we're trying to get people to where it's causing businesses and stuff to suffer when you got a guy really stoned out there and doing drugs and that scares people. That puts people off. So what happens is then they just go to the a little bit more remote, a little bit off the downtown to do those drugs, maybe in a hidden alley and so on to do those drugs. Yeah. And if you confiscate the drugs, you think, well, that may be good for them, but no, it doesn't, because they have the addiction, and it's going to make them more desperate to get the drug.
Yeah.
So when you confiscate the drug, you make them more desperate. And the spokesperson in this particular article says, well, then they're more desperate, so then there'll be more illicit sex trade, because the women, of course, would turn tricks and to try to get it, and then the men would do petty crime to do it, and so there's that problem. What are we going to do? That just ups the problem rather than reduces it. If you make people desperate for the drugs. Now, then again, if you start giving them drugs so they don't do that, then they never do recover. So every kind of approach is being tried where they've given them clean drugs and clean shooting galleries sort of thing, or that kind of idea.
Yeah.
That makes sure that they don't get HIV, or they don't get desperate enough to go and break somebody's window and steal something. But on the other hand, it's less incentive for them to go and get treatment, and they will rely on something like that. Anytime they have to give drugs or methadone treatment or something like that for someone, they should really connect it with rehabilitation program. So you have to sign up for it and maybe even live in a place where you can withdraw gradually off of the drug. But that doesn't seem to be any good, because once somebody does sort of volunteer for that and get involved in that, then after a while they have their rights and they cannot be contained, so they leave. And they may recycle back in there afterwards. So these are all the things that have.
Well, Mike is saying that retail store workers are in danger every day from stealing. It is true. That is true.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I've been saying for a long time that we need to do more on burglaries. You know, we don't catch the criminals, and even when the police are given, you know, full mugshots. You know, a picture as good as yours that's showing that it was this particular individual, you know, doing the robbery, because there's a full on picture of them with a you know, brandishing a weapon or whatever, you know.
Yeah, well, I would just say, well, if they came to get me, I say, well, that's AI, man. Yeah. Somebody in there is jealous of my of my celebrity status as a bingo caller.
Yeah,
they want the job.
All right, but so
and that happened to me recently. Basically, I was somebody recognized me as a bingo caller, and it was not a homeless guy, but in among that sort of fringe group, I would say, mm-hmm. And wanted to become a bingo caller. He wanted me to help him become a bingo caller.
Do you know what that reminds me of? It was a thing called Boys from the Black Stuff, and the guy used to say about he'd look at everybody's job everybody was doing. He was a homeless you know, jobless person, and and his comment was, "Gives a job, any job, I can do that."
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I remember going to the employment office, the Pogie office, basically we'd call it, and I'd be there, and there was some new Canadian there, and they'd hired, and he had a super nice suit and jacket, and you know, I mean, he was dressed to the nines, flashy watch and everything, but he had no clue what he was doing. I don't even know why they hired him. He must have faked his way in there. And he just was completely inept. And finally, when he was trying to interview me to see what kind of work I was going to do, and I just said, yeah, I want your job. You don't know what you're doing. I didn't say it like that, but I says, yeah. How do I get? He says, what do you want to do? I says, I want to do your job. He says, you got, you know, how do I get your job? You know, or something like your job. You know, I didn't want to replace him. I just wanted a job like him. I want a job like you. I want a job in here. They said, I'm an expert at Pogie. By now, I haven't been on it so often in my life. I said, I'm going to work here. This is what I'm good at.
Well, I get that. If I'd have been that guy, you'd have got the job right away.
Yeah, well, I had experience.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you might have had some paperwork. Hey, fill out this form, man.
Yeah,
but you'd have been next on the list, right? Right. Okay. So yeah, and it's only part and parcel of the approach. And the question about, you know, substance abuse is one that's going to be with us for quite some time.
Yeah, fortunately, these are not. And there's another article in here about the homeless strategies too. So the police have said, well, we cannot arrest people out of addiction. And the spokespersons here for the talk or speak on behalf of the social services say, you know what? We forget the number one bad drug out there is alcohol. by and large, we get more people in the hospital for alcohol-related problems. The alcohol, of course, is the thing that they can get more easily, and alcohol is the thing that kind of sustains a lot of this going on. The more heavier drugs, like fentanyl or the opiates or methamphetamine, they're all out there, but they are expensive, and when people turn mostly to alcohol. But what did surprise me there that we had 111 opioid deaths in Niagara last year. 111. That was more than I thought. 111 opioid deaths. That's just opioids.
Yeah, that's pretty serious. That's pretty damn serious there.
Yeah. So you get the idea that, and I don't know if the opioid is probably includes fentanyl, because fentanyl is a synthetic opiate. So
yeah,
but it's an extremely powerful one. I mean, when they first started to refine it, if you picked it up, it was so strong it could go through your skin, and seriously, it could put your life at risk if you didn't know how to handle it. And that's how strong it was. So that we do have these problems, and they are completely, they seem to be nearly unsolvable, because no matter what we do, we can't fix them. And then there's another article here where Ken Todd has kind of like volunteered to coordinate the services of all the people who address the problems of the homeless and the addicted. This is something that frustrates a lot of outfits like ours, like the Kiwanis Club, and so it's listed here that there are a bunch of different, it'd be Project Share, Salvation Army, and a bunch of others, the Soup Kitchen, all working to help people less fortunate in our society, these fringe groups, and yet they are not coordinated. And Diodati himself has said that they're not coordinated, so it's frustrating when you try to talk to one of them. So Ken Todd has sort of already begun this, because he has connections with the Soup Kitchen and Project Share. What he wants to do is coordinate all the different facilities that provide care for on the fringe people, including the addicted and the homeless, and try to coordinate a strategy. Well, that's easier said than done. Our Kiwanis brothers and sisters in Hamilton have tried that for several years. Got all the different agencies, got all in the same room, and tried to coordinate a strategy that they could all do. So it'd be the service clubs and the providers, to get them all in the same room, and they try to get them to coordinate, come down with one idea or one strategy that they could all contribute to in different ways, and it never works. So if Ken Todd can get all these people together,
I think
strategy. Yeah, go ahead.
I like the idea that if you can get them together, it's a good thing. But too many of these situations have been saying, well, butt out. I've been working for years on getting this problem solved, and we're just about getting this to fruition. And now you want to come and change things? Get out of here. I think that's a lot of the challenges I think he will face.
I should say that remind everybody that Ken Todd is the previous CAO of Chief Administrative Officer of Niagara Falls.
Yeah. I thought he was a Buffalo resident, but
I don't know. I don't think so. But he maybe, I don't know, maybe moved there. I don't know, whatever.
Well, that's an issue. Not that that's an issue. It's good to see somebody doing something like this. And I think it's a good idea. But I do see some petty jealousies getting in the way of this.
Maybe. Generally speaking, though, what happens is one outfit comes up with their idea, and they say, well, this is what we're going to do. And they try to dominate the situation. You know what I mean? Yeah. And they get kind of petty. And some of the organizations have paid members to do it, not ours. Kiwanis, probably not Lions either, or Rotary. They probably don't have anybody paid, but those are the service groups. But like Project Share, they'll have paid members.
Yeah.
Soup Kitchen, they have a few paid members.
They've got paid people because they must have, because even though they've got volunteers, they must have a few paid people to to deal with some of the nitty gritty bits, right?
Sure. And then when people see, okay, well, they're going to shake things up and they're going to be my boss. If we get a new program, they're going to be my boss. Maybe I'll lose my job, but
yeah,
I've seen what they've done before, and I don't like the way they approach this. So if you get one guy like Ken Todd, but he's going to be a volunteer himself, he's not going to get paid. Now, he obviously has the organizational skills, being a CAO, to be able to coordinate these things, but can he really?
Well, he's also got a lot of contacts, right? Remember from his days as CAO.
Well, I've already mentioned that. Yeah, he's already been involved in the Soup Kitchen and Project Share and that.
Yeah.
So of course he's had a lot of connections with these people throughout time. If there is one guy, one boss, and he coordinate them, and they all buy into this would be pretty good. But to have one, so that's going to be the real thing. But to have one central figure that is not essentially a member of any of the other groups, I think that's a very good idea, because each group has their own system of doing things, and will not generally disagree. What Ken Todd can do is kind of direct the resources, say, well, can you take care of this part of it, this part of it, this part of it, and we'll see if we can use a coordinated strategy. I would say good luck to that, but I can't. The homeless and the drug addicted problem is a growing one. It has some aspect of the declining economy and the declining standard of the middle class. I think that's one contributing factor.
Yeah,
the extreme availability of very powerful drugs. That's another problem, and just the overall sort of uncertainty and lack of spirit, I think, that comes along with somebody in this situation, who's becomes like there just seemed to be a way back. I talked to a couple of homeless people, I remember a few years ago, and basically what they told me, it's once you lose your house, once you lose a place to live, it's like a mountain to come back from.
Yeah,
it's easy to lose it, but it's really hard to regain a situation where you can.
Yeah, and one of the things Mike makes a good point here is every one of these volunteer organizations is worried about their funding.
Yeah, that's true too. So a person like that would take the reins and coordinate the system would have to be very, very cognizant of that. He cannot favor one over the other, because the funding from one may shift over the other depending on what kind of prejudice he may have.
Yeah, and that funding really needs to stay in place as is.
Yeah, kind of. To coordinate the different agencies is a big thing. However, most of the time, these agencies like the Salvation Army, Soup Kitchen, Project Share, and all of them are Band-Aid solutions. They take care of this. They take care of the need as they find it. They're the ones like this. The Salvation will be the one that pick you up off the ground while you're vomiting, kind of thing, and sort of direct you towards a better life. But they, and same as the others in the Soup Kitchen, what do? They just take care of the nutritional
immediate need. It's an immediate need issue, right?
But nothing thereafter. And we've talked about that continually here too. Yeah. What is the step outside? How can we reintroduce people into a society?
Well, and very often we
provide.
can't even take care of the immediate need.
Yeah, look, and even if you get a guy that's kind of squandered his life with drugs and maybe not his own fault, but then has no particular skills to offer and even becomes a dishwasher or something like that, that's a need. He's providing a need.
Yeah.
You know, somebody needs a dishwasher in a restaurant, he can do that. And that's why I think topping up somebody's salary if they take on a job like that, and then you can provide them enough money over and above that to get reasonable place to live, is a wise idea, like the universal paycheck kind of thing. Everybody's guaranteed a certain level of income, and people who are willing to crawl out of a situation like that and take on jobs, because there's not going to be too many jobs available for them, are there? Are they going to go into GM or whatever with or other places with police records and health issues and all that have come? There's I don't know. I think there's a general depression going over society. I don't know. People are becoming more isolated, more depressed. And I think part of that is what's driving the homeless and the drug addicted. However, how to fix it is still a mystery.
Well, a lot of the problems, I think the way I see it is a lot of the problems we get about how to fix it is the fact that the pain is felt at the municipal level. The fixes are not available at the municipal level. So we in the city of Niagara don't have the resources available in order to help fix that problem. And so the money isn't being made available by the province or by the federal government. And generally speaking, municipal budgets are the ones that are always squeezed out.
Well, this is costing like a very few. It claims that only 75 people in Niagara Falls are homeless. I don't believe it. I think there's more than that.
I don't believe that.
No. But they say that there's like over 700 in Niagara region. You know, so
there was a count 2 years ago, 1,400.
Well, whatever it is. Whatever it is, and of course, there's always those people that are surfing on other people's couches because they get nowhere to live.
Yeah,
they're the next ones that might fall into that homeless status. But the fact of it is that there's a certain amount of people being left behind, and I don't know really what to do about it, because a small enough, whether it's 1,400 or 700 or 75. A small amount of people require a lot of resources from the city. So there is the Buchanan Street home, the Summer Street home. There are shelters. The shelter's enough to service 175 people, they claim by the article. So all of that costs money, and all that takes on resources from a very small community that does not add to the resources of that committee. It just drains them. So you talk about the police or the firefighters or the paramedics or whatever else that over, like, or these people are overrepresented when homeless and drug addicted people are overrepresented among the calls that all of these agencies have. So that's money. And then when the police or the fire or the paramedics or something ever deal with them, and then they have to go to the hospital. And if you talk to anybody, you take like my cousin worked as a firefighter in Toronto for many years, and they have these people. This has been going on for forever. It just happens to be the homeless and drug addicted populations have exploded. They've always been there. And he'll tell you that they pick somebody up like a millimeter away from death. They'll revive them. They'll send them to the hospital. And next thing you know, 6 months later, they get a call, and there he or she is again. And they do the same thing. And then they find the same person again until finally that person succumbs to whatever they do. But that's an enormous amount of resources for a few people. I think that's a big part of the frustration, and none of us begrudge the resources being spent, but we don't see any results. We don't begrudge giving money to Project Share. We don't begrudge giving money to the soup kitchen. We don't begrudge giving money to Salvation Army. However, we don't see results. We will continue to add the resources to those agencies, but the frustration is there is no improvement. As a matter of fact, there's that population of drug addicted people and homeless people just keeps growing and taking more and more resources, because one more homeless drug addicted person takes a huge amount of resources from the community, because he'll have to be a paramedic will one day have to come and take care of them one or two times. The police will have to come along where they're doing drugs in the open. Then they'll go into the hospital and they'll have to be there in the hospital, and maybe even go into ICU.
I remember a few years ago they were talking about charging you if you had to be rescued down the gorge.
They do that now. Yeah, for sure.
Right. But again, so the question here is, I was then going to say, well, how does that play out in terms of those paramedics rescuing a homeless person?
Well, the paramedics are not supposed to be paid, but I could tell you from reports that I've heard from at least one paramedic that they're totally fed up. And some of them feel like they just should leave them alongside the road and let them die so we don't have to deal with them.
Yeah.
The paramedics and police are really fed up because, look, we're talking about how expensive the police are. So what we got is a very expensive police department babysitting a handful of homeless people. If you go by Summer Street, you see the cops there all the time. You know what I mean? And if you go by, it's just over and over and over again.
There's some places, the Summer Street one, difficult, but I've seen some places whereby you see the police outside of an area like a homeless shelter, and people on the street alongside it are speeding, but the cops are not paying any attention to the speeders because they're dealing with this homeless problem.
Yeah, so it takes the resources of the police away, and then you have like St. Andrew's Church, where they would take in the homeless and have a shelter for them, and the homeless, what they do to pay them back, they make a complete and total mess of the place, and then when somebody comes to feed them, they take the wrappers off and don't even put it in a garbage can. It's a few feet away from them. So people object to that kind of thing. People are acting like that because they've lost their sense of humanity. But you know what I mean? Like a handful of people, a very small handful of people are absorbing huge amounts of resources.
And this is part of the problem. It's like, and again, like you were told, there's a lot of situations where you're right. A handful of people. It's a small handful of people, half a dozen people that the police are seeing almost on an everyday basis.
Yes, and if the general public sees that there is progress, even slow progress, where you get one or two or three people saved from that life, then it's worth keep contributing to these places, because in among that line in the soup kitchen, of that 50 people in that soup kitchen line, there may be two or three of them that you can pluck out, and they will be find a life again.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that the problem seems to be growing, and there's very few people that seem to be able to be resourced out of it. And I think that's the general frustration.
Yeah.
This seems to be an intangible kind of problem that evades the solution.
Yeah. And basically, okay, I'm just thinking Todd's role is really just to kind of allow coordination, but I do hope that works. I do hope that brings us something better.
Well, he's going to be an unpaid advisor, and the problem with that for me is when he gets to the point where the frustration is too great, right? There's nothing stopping him from pulling the pin. But if he was paid a I don't know what kind of dedication he has to the job.
Well, he will have gotten the pension from Niagara Falls.
Yeah, but you need the headache of what he's asking for. It's going to be a huge headache.
I grant that. Well, let's see. Let's keep an open mind and let's see.
Okie doke.
All right. Okay. So moving on. So Diodati is saying that basically everybody is paying attention to the belugas. It's a situation that's very emotionally and politically charged. It's probably one of the most complex issues Niagara's faced in a while, and Diodati basically is saying that there's a spotlight on Marineland right now, global spotlight on Marineland right now, and they need to do something about these remaining beluga whales.
Yes. I don't know. Doug Ford says, okay, we're going to make sure the beluga whales are taken care of. Marineland is losing resources and doesn't have enough resources to take care of them. The article does say that they are trying to sell parcels of their land and hope that some of the money coming in for the people purchasing or redeveloping the land will come in and sort of help them. But there are problems with that because nobody really wants to do a whole lot of anything until those whales are gone. No purchaser of any property or anything like that wants to have any attachment to the beluga whales or what happens in Marineland.
Yeah.
So to be safe for them, they want those beluga whales up before they continue their investments in and around the area.
But I'm going to ask.
The provinces, Doug Ford said that, okay, we're going to make sure that they have a best of all possible outcomes, but where's the money? Where's the cash? Where's the solution?
And here's the question. So China's Chimelong Ocean Kingdom has already put in an offer to take them, but Doug Ford and most local people oppose that solution. Is it going to be where they end up going, I wonder?
Nobody's willing to take them. There's no place for them. They are a whale that cannot exist in the wild. Can't exist in the wild. So to take them to China, where they can exist like they have now and die off there, would be one solution. But the problem is, would they have them procreate in captivity? That wouldn't be so great, would it? So the whole idea is to not have whales like this or other sea mammals, particularly in captivity. That's the push. So if you take your beluga whales and you take them to China, then if they procreate there, that's against what you want. But if they go there and they just live out their lives there, that might be a good solution because they can't exist in the wild. So what are you going to do?
Animal welfare advocates are pushing for an independent health assessment and exploring sanctuary options such as at Sea Life Trust's facility in Iceland, though it only has room for 10 belugas.
Well, there's 10. Well, you could take 10 anyway, whatever you got. You take
Yeah.
as many as you can, get them to
Well,
Iceland if
instead,
that facility is any better than the one in China.
yeah. And then the question, and basically Diodati is saying that he's receiving calls from all around the world from groups proposing solutions.
Yeah, I imagine
I
his phone's ringing off the hook.
Yeah, I understand he's not going to make all of those potential options publicly available because they all have to be assessed before they can before you and I can even talk about them.
Yeah, so it's something beyond me. I believe that we shouldn't be have mammals captive like that unless they're in an environment that's suitable for them. Something like the Toronto Zoo, where they make compounds very suitable for the wild animals, and also help supply animals to go back into the wild after they've been extinct in an area for a long time. Like we find a lot of problems in Africa and Asia. We're even here in North America where we've taken the landscape in which these animals live and convert it to mining or agriculture or something. Zoos can repopulate areas with animals that are under stress in the areas where they come from, and when those areas are now not so stressful for those animals, they can be reintroduced. The rhinoceros is a really good one. The rhinoceros have become under insane poaching. The numbers have gone way down, and that's because of poaching, and that's because the rhino horn is supposed to be an aphrodisiac. Yeah. And Oriental medicine will refuse to give up on that idea.
Yeah, that's bullshit. But hey,
Yeah, so when you take a lot of rhinoceroses and find places for them around the world in zoos, that's a good thing because you can replenish the stock of rhinoceros when the poaching thing all ends. That kind of thing. There was an island that they captured all the frogs off this particular island until the island could be cleaned up and the frogs be reintroduced, and they're a very rare type of frog. So that's what zoos can do. But this is different. This is different.
Okay. And one of the things that has been made clear is the Whale Sanctuary Project, which is a worldwide organization, is amongst other groups lobbying for a Canadian-based sanctuary where no current such facility exists.
Yeah, we hear a lot of noise about one in New Brunswick, or was it Nova Scotia? I can't remember. There was supposed to be
I think it was
a place where you could take your killer whales and your beluga whales and put them right in the sea there, and then take care of them right there, so that the whales could go anywhere they want, but because they couldn't survive on their own, they could come back there to be fed.
30 is a lot of whales.
What?
30 whales is a lot of whales.
Yeah, you bet. So I would say if Iceland could take 10 of them, take 10 of them right now, get them out of there. That leaves us only with 20.
Yeah.
But this is another one of those near intangible, like problems that resist solution.
Yeah.
It's just very, very hard to go, okay, we got them. Some people want them, but we don't want to give them to them because we don't want them to go through the same thing they're just going through now. But then one of the ideas is just euthanize them all, get rid of them. Is that ethical? Is that moral? But then again, on the other hand, everyone will say you want the government to step in, as it costs the government a huge amount of money, millions of dollars. So you really want the taxpayer to pay for it?
Yeah, very good questions. Don't have an easy answer.
I think that, obviously what we want to do is put the whales in a situation where what we want to do is put the whales in a situation where they can live out their lives and make sure they, don't procreate so that somebody else can abuse them. But we need someplace, and the open sea where they can be fed, like someplace where they could just be put into the sea and they can be habitualized to get their food from, some caregivers there and have a reasonable life, because they're unprepared to live in the wild. So if you put them out in the wild, they die.
Yeah. But you can put them by putting them into a sanctuary. At least they can be monitored.
Yeah, the blues might have a chance because they are already a pod. So if you've got so many, let's say you got 20 beluga whales or even 10 beluga whales, they are very familiar with one another. I suppose they regard themselves as a pod. So if you put them back in the wild, they may be able to adjust to the wild.
If they can adjust to hunting again.
Yeah.
Biggest problem is, any animal in captivity doesn't have to hunt for its food. It's given it.
Yeah. And if you put them out there, don't forget the killer whale you let out will now eat the beluga, because that's on their menu. So there's all kinds of things that have to be sourced out. I mean, it sounds like an expensive habit. Let's not do this again. Let's don't have any more marine lands, that kind of thing. It's a very expensive program to become. Now, remember, like Marineland was one of the most prosperous spots in Niagara. It's very prosperous, made a lot of money for Holler, brought a lot of money into Niagara. But now that there is a general idea that's not a good thing. So, so it seems to me that this place of prosperity has fallen so badly, and now needs government and other help.
Well, one of the problems, of course, when we always talk about government assistance in like this, is there are times when government needs to step in and take actions, and there are times when we deplore government spending. We have to strike a balance in all of that. Right? I'm not trying to be insensitive here, but we do.
I'm sure they're all ready for your solution, and mine too, but I don't have one.
Yeah, no, neither do I.
I can't see any solution here where the government just does not step in.
Mike
because
says
there are no private agencies willing to take on the responsibility or the expense. So what's left? Government.
And Mike makes the point that the owners are responsible for the cost, right?
They are responsible for the cost, but if they don't have any money, they might just decide to euthanize them all because that's the cheapest way out. And you've already cut them off from one of their solutions, which is to send them to China.
Yeah.
So okay, I got a solution to our problem. We can send the whales to China, and they say, "Oh no," and then you don't, and you have a problem. They have a problem of getting money for the segmented pieces of land they have in Marineland. They want to sell that stuff, but investors don't want anything to do with the whales. They don't want anything to do with the park. Yeah. In fact, some of the conditions on the land sale is get rid of the animals, get rid of the whales.
And one of the
things, you got to do that first before you get the money flow.
And Mike is also saying that the family has made billions of dollars off these animals. They have a responsibility to pay.
Yeah, sure. But what's left of the family may have not had much to do with the business at all. And I don't know, like Marie Holler just died, and Holler himself died not long ago. So who's left?
Yeah. All right. Another challenge. Migrant Worker Alliance is calling on Ottawa to compensate migrant workers from the fines that have been collected.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. That so they've had temporary temporary workers come into Canada, we've talked about that. The Trudeau government just flooded the place with temporary workers and had no control over the situation. The temporary workers were abused and underpaid, and the temporary workers took the jobs of other Canadians. So a lot of that got sorted out even before Trudeau left, but of course it's being sorted out now. Now what's happened is the government's come down on a lot of these places that use temporary workers, particularly in this case Filipinos, and they took these temporary workers, forced them to work 16 to 18-hour days. If they got hurt or sick, they were told they were going to be deported. So they came to work hurt and sick. And so the government came down on these employers, fined them and straightened them out. But the workers got no compensation for the abuse that they abuse they suffered under these employers.
And I agree.
So the government's come down on them, and these employers are some of them are refused the right to have temporary workers for 5 or 10 years, depending on how bad they've been. So they brought fines down upon them and sort of embarrassed them. However, these temporary workers that came here to work were abused. Some of them were sexually abused, so as the allegations, and anyway, exploited terribly.
Yeah, and one of
the capitalist swine, I tell you, that's the undercurrent. If you don't have regulations on capitalism, you get capitalist swine that will do that to you.
Well, one of these particular cases, a shellfish processing company was fined $1 million and for violating the temporary permanent worker program, and that and when you hear that, you kind of say, well, okay, I understand where Nigel Saravia, the organizer of the Migrant Workers Alliance for Change, is coming in, because he's saying, let's put some of this money to the people who've been wronged. And I get it. I understand it. And I do support that kind of and generally that need for that.
Yeah, I posted the article a little while ago, but I can't open it right now. But anyway, what I remembered about it was that the temporary work program, this happens in the United States too. We remember that they had to keep illegal workers in, I think it was Alabama or Mississippi or something like that, because they were essential to meat processing. And that was absolutely essential. If they took them out of the meat processing that they were working in, it would have been bad for the area at large for meat products and things like that. And yet they were going to send them all home. But they were abused, in that case, illegal workers. Here, they're not illegal, but they're temporary. And the problem here is the government hasn't got good oversight over it. So they bring in the temporary workers, and what the temporary workers do is take over jobs that would normally go to a native-born Canadian, because they can pay them very less. Wow. And then the government does not have oversight over it. So when these workers are completely abused, then the government's taken forever to get around to figuring this out and how to deal with it. And then when they do deal with it, they have no consideration of the worker themselves, who was coaxed into the country, came into the country illegally as a temporary worker, and then once they began to work, they were completely exploited, abused. Their money was withheld. They were threatened with deportation. They had to work 16 to 18 to 20 hours a day. And if they didn't come in and do that work, then they were threatened. Their sexual advances they had to deal with, and they had no protection from the government at all. And yet the government was the one that let them in, and the government was the one that's supposed to protect their rights in this particular case. Now, they may be here for the wrong reason, and they may be taking Canadian jobs, but they themselves didn't know that.
No,
They
they didn't, and they're the innocents in this whole thing, right? They came here hoping that they would get something better. In fact, they've been mistreated, grossly mistreated, and I do accept that when these fines are levied, setting up some form of compensation fund would be a good practice.
it
Doesn't
looks like government has no interest in that right now. Right now, the government's come down on these employers, so that problem will not continue. But in the meantime, the wages, there has no control over it. There was no oversight over all this. So these workers were continually exploited. The government was aware of it.
Yeah.
And took so long to get around to dealing with it. And then once they dealt with it, they put the hammer down on some of the employers, but then they did not insist that those employers then compensate the workers in which they abused it. Yeah. Now they came down with fines on these companies, but they did not come down with a criminal charges, which they very well should have. When you do that to somebody, you treat them like a slave and you exploit them like that, that's a criminal thing. And to really put a stop to it, throw a few of those people in jail. Then
during the last, in some respects, that's a good idea. During the last fiscal year, Canada's collected $4.9 million in fines and banned 36 employers from the program. 36.
Banning them from the program is not enough. Banning from the program, you think that, okay, you ban them from the program. Well, how are you going to pay for the crimes you've committed against the workers?
Yeah.
What are you going to do about that? Are there any charges laid? No, we're going to ban the company from doing that. Yeah. In the meantime, their foremans will be flogging these people, and those orders come down from the top.
Charges.
Whip these people, get as much as you can out of for every damn penny that you pay, which is not much.
And charges for, charges, actually, you'd have to amend the criminal code for charges to be laid.
Why?
Because there's no current rule about that. There would be no current law about that.
There is lots of laws about exploitation of workers.
But none that come
regulations.
But how many of them come with jail sentences?
Well, they can, and I think they should. So anyway, it isn't the workers' fault. They're going to come here, right? If they're offered here, they're going to come here. It's not their fault. But once they get here and you exploit them like you do, of course you're going to keep them because you can make them work long, hard hours for pennies and put the fear of God in them by telling them they're going to be exploited, or they're going to be thrown out of the country. So the government's got to come in and start laying criminal charges against these goons.
I think you need to change I don't know enough about this area, but I suspect you would probably have to change the criminal code to lay charges.
I think just hanging a few of them in public will do the trick. A little bit of deterrence there. let the temporary workers deal with their foreman on their own. I'll see what happens there.
Yeah. Welcome back, Mr.
Old joking aside, this was the government's fault. This was the government's fault. They brought temporary workers in that we didn't need. And then once they brought the temporary workers in, they threw them to the wolves.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what they did. They turned their back on them. They threw them to the wolves, and and certain employers exploited them like as if they were slaves and treated them, mistreated them terribly. And the government just did the see nothing, hear nothing, speak nothing thing for a while, until they were embarrassed because they're the ones that started the program. And they were loath to admit that it was a bad program, and it took them a while to come around to it. This temporary worker thing goes way back. The bulge in the temporary worker problem goes back to a year after the COVID started, and they're now just resolving that.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah, and Mike's making the point about when you allow employers to be in charge of the housing, it becomes it has a danger of becoming slave labor situation. Yeah. Morning, Gary.
Hi, Gary. How's it going, man?
All right. And I think we'd better leave it at that point, Dave.
Okay, everyone, have a great Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah, and we'll see you Tuesday.
And I got to go into hiding. Because everyone's looking for a turkey.
Well, you're safe at my house.
Oh, well, you're a vegetarian. I don't want to fall for that one. Anyway,
yeah, I'm a vegetarian, and my wife isn't buying a turkey. She doesn't like turkeys.
Oh, okay. I guess I'm safe then. Yeah. All right. Without further ado, I bid you adieu. And I'm going to bring up Gaza again. It looks as if the Hamas and that idiot Netanyahu may have come to a place, but I don't trust Netanyahu as far as I can throw him. If Trump is finally fed up with him, maybe we'll get somewhere. But I have a feeling that Netanyahu, he just got a nose ring on Trump. He compliments him and tells him how wonderful he is, and Trump and the Republicans
do it my way, man.
Yeah, and AIPAC is sticking their nose in there too. So I have just a tiny bit of optimism. I want this thing to end, and it does do us good to think of this. Israel is not a democracy; it is an ethno-religious state devoted to Jews and Judaism, and will not tolerate many Palestinians or others, or Christian or Muslim Palestinians. So that's something that we have to view. They have the Hasbara ideology, where they remember both sides hate each other here, and it's going to be hard to get over that. Each side has done, over the last 100 years, has done atrocity after atrocity on one another. Everybody forgets about the Jewish terrorist groups called the Irgun and the Stern Gang and the Haganah, who did a lot of terrorist work against the British and the Palestinians. And of course, the Palestinians did it back. It's going to be very hard to overcome all that.
Yeah.
Anyway, with a little bit of hope, without further ado, I bid you adieu.